Welcome to Time. I'm Tanner Staggs, and joining me, as always, my brother Tyler Staggs. Today, we're going to be talking about the Tennessee Titans wide receivers, tight ends, basically just the pass catchers, and what our predictions for them are going to be in 2020. So, we're going to go ahead and kick it off. Of course, A.J. Brown's going to be their first receiver that is talked about when we discuss the Titans wide receivers. So, Tyler, you go ahead and start. We'll kick off our predictions for A.J. Brown.
All right, so A.J. Brown, we know last year, 52 receptions, 1,051 yards, and 8 touchdowns. So this year, with Ryan Tannehill leading the team from the start of the season, I see pretty much everybody's numbers going up, and also with Delanie Walker being gone and Tajay Sharp being gone. Those were some targets that are now going to be split up between some of these guys. I have A.J. Brown being targeted 110 times. I have him getting 82 receptions. So that comes out to about a 74.5% catch percentage. And I think he's going to break 1,500 yards this year. I think he's going to end up with around 1,526 yards to finish the season. So coming out to about 18.6 yards per catch. I know that's down a couple yards from last year, but I also have him adding 4 more touchdowns, receiving touchdowns, that is, to his total from last year. So I think he breaks into double digits and has 12 receiving touchdowns. And I also think he's going to add another rushing touchdown this year. I think last year we just seen kind of a small sample of what he's going to be able to do. And then coming into this year, being the number one receiver, and like I said, with Tannehill leading the team from the start of the season, I just think he's going to go out and have a crazy year.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt that he's going to be the number one receiver, and I think that it'll probably be that way for years to come. I think that he'll play way more than his rookie contract in Tennessee, but that is a ways down the road. So right now, let's enjoy the cheap contract that we have him on. He's one of the best values at wide receiver. I'm not sure exactly how much he is making per year, but to have that kind of production out of someone on a rookie contract can just really help you to build the rest of your team with that extra money. Like you said, last season he finished with 1,051 yards, 8 touchdowns, and this was the first 1,000-yard receiving season since Delanie Walker did it, I think, in 2015. I think it's the best receiving season by a single Titans player since 2004. And in that season, both Drew Bennett and Derek Mason, I lost his name there for a second. I think they both kind of surpassed what A.J. Brown did last season. Drew Bennett with 1,247 yards and 11 touchdowns. Derek Mason with 1,168 and 7 touchdowns. A.J. Brown, just to be thrown into the mix with those guys, he accomplished that in his rookie season. That's just great. So what are we going to see from him in 2020? Could it be a sophomore slump? Obviously, you don't think so. Teron Davenport had a really good article about how he could avoid a sophomore slump, and he made 3 really good points. Maximizing every opportunity, because like you said, he broke 1,000 yards receiving with just 52 receptions. Creating more space at the top of his route, that's something that Mike Rabel has touched on sometimes, and playing better against some of the league's best cover corners. Last season against 3 of the top corners, Jalen Ramsey, Casey Hayward, and Marshawn Lattimore, he had just a 50% catch percentage. Against Jalen Ramsey, he had 4 targets, 1 reception for 4 yards. Against Casey Hayward, he had 8 targets, 6 receptions, and 64 yards. And against Marshawn Lattimore, he had 2 targets, 1 reception for 34 yards. So he's got to play better against those guys, because he's going to be drawing coverage from better corners instead of Corey Davis taking some of those guys like he did at the beginning of last season.
Yeah, I mean, teams are going to know that he is our number one receiver, and they are going to focus more on him this year because, obviously looking back at last year, they see what he can do. So, I think he's going to avoid that sophomore slump, and I just think he's probably put in the work over this off season to come out and really produce. And I think Vrabel and just the Titans team as a whole, they're going to come in with really good game planning this year and find ways to get him open and get him all these targets.
Okay, are we back?
We are back.
Okay, so I think start probably with Vrabel because that's where you were at, and then you can just kind of blend them together.
I just think Vrabel and it's Arthur Smith, right? Offensive coordinator. Smith. I think they're going to come in with some really good game planning on how to get A.J. Brown open and get him all of these targets because they know how dynamic he can be in that receiving game.
And, he's been working on improving at the top of his route. Like I said, he needs to improve on. If he can do that, then, he's going to be able to make a lot of opportunities for himself just by improving his route running. So let's go to somebody who hasn't been quite as impressive early in his career, Corey Davis.
Well, just going back to A.J. Brown right quick. I mean,
oh, you're not done. You're not done.
Well, no. I'm wanting to see. I mean, what are you thinking for him? You didn't really. Do you think he's going to improve from last year?
I didn't give my projections for him. Okay, so my projections for A.J. Brown in 2020, I think he's going to have 103 targets for 73 receptions and 1,360 yards, 9 touchdowns. I don't think he's going to break double digits like you said.
All right. That's still – I will take those numbers.
I got so carried away talking about how he was going to avoid the sophomore slump. I didn't even go into my projections for him.
Well, that's why I'm here to help you jump back to that, make sure we get everything covered here.
So now we can jump to Corey Davis, who hasn't been quite as impressive as A.J. Brown early in his career.
All right. So for me, I've said several times that I think Corey Davis can be, he's going to be better at the number 2 receiver spot. I don't see him improving too much from last year's numbers. However, I think kind of like how we've talked with some of the defensive guys, more of his stuff is going to show up on tape. I think he's really going to continue to contribute with his run blocking and just blocking downfield in general. I do have him – I have his targets increasing from 69 last year to 75 this year. I think he'll have 52 receptions. I think his catch percentage goes up. Last year it was like 62.3. I think
A.J. Brown were both not very good last year.
Right, and I think Davis's improves to 69.3%.
I said they weren't very good. I don't know. It's decent.
Yeah, it's not bad when you go and look at some of these other guys who are mainly targeted on, third down situations and, even some of the tight ends, their percentages are on up in the 70s. I think Davis, I think he improves his catch percentage this year. Last year he had 601 yards receiving. I don't think he increases that too much. I have him finishing with 680 yards. But I do think he adds more touchdowns this year. I think he ends up finishing the year with 4 touchdowns. But like I said, his impact, I just don't think a lot of people or some of these people that say he's a bust, they expect him to do more as far as receiving yards and catches.
They expect him to be A.J. Brown.
Right. And I'm fine with him not being A.J. Brown. As long as he can improve his catch percentage, just bring the ball in when he is targeted and keep up with the good run blocking, because I mean, our team, I feel like, is going to be centered around Derrick Henry, continuing what he was able to do last year. And even with A.J. Brown, catching some of these slants that he takes for a lot of yards, having Corey Davis downfield blocking, I mean, that helps out tremendously.
Yeah, I mean, it really does. And that's one thing that I put down for him on here. Corey Davis, I mean, his run blocking ability or just blocking ability in general is like unmatched. I mean, it's really literally there's only a few wide receivers in the NFL that are as good as him at that. But as far as production wise, yeah, he hasn't lived up to a 5th overall pick. But I think he's a really good wide receiver too. I understand why they didn't pick up his 5th-year option because it was way too much money. But I really am optimistic about them bringing him back on a little bit cheaper deal to be a wide receiver too, because I like him in that role, and I think that he likes it with the Tennessee Titans. I think that we're kind of going to see just the same old production from him, which by no means is bad as long as he continues to block well. He continues to just I mean, he does a lot of things well, and as long as he continues to do those things, then he'll have a place as number 2 wide receiver. There's I feel like the reason that people are always so down on him is because there's so much there potential wise, and it just never blossoms into production.
Well, that's just
So
like, I believe it was yesterday. I went back and watched just some of the highlights from last year because, I mean, let's face it, I miss football right now. I'm ready for it to be started
we
up.
all do.
And, I went back and watched some highlights and seen some plays that he made that I was just like, wow, like, he has the ability to do that. Does he do it all the time? No. But at the same time, if he can just bring some of those big play abilities in as that wide receiver too, and like you said, I'd be fine with the Titans bringing him back on a better deal and having him as our wide receiver too. I would have no complaints about that.
Yeah, and I don't think that anybody would, especially if they can get him for a lot cheaper than what his 5th-year option was supposed to be. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was ridiculous. So for 2020, Corey Davis, I just hit my little table here. I'm thinking 71 targets for 50 receptions, 704 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So we're pretty close on Corey
Yeah,
Davis.
yeah, we're
And I
pretty
think
close
that
on him.
a lot of people would be close on Corey Davis being that. I don't know. Some people think that we're going to have 2 receivers with 1,000 yards this season. But I think that most people would kind of agree with that's the range that he sticks in through so far in his career.
Yeah, I think if we were going to have 2 receivers with 1,000 yards this season, if I was going to go with that, I would probably have to bring AJ Brown back down from over 1,500 yards. I mean, in order for us to have 2 guys hitting that 1,000-yard mark, I think I would have to have Brown more
Well,
in that
it would have to be
1,200-yard
closer to
range.
how Drew Bennett and Derek Mason were, where it's
Exactly.
like 1,250 and it's, maybe
Yep.
1,100 or a little more, somewhere around
Yeah,
there.
and that's the point I was getting to. I would, but I just think, like I said with AJ Brown, I think he's going to go off this next year. Um, really think he's going to finish as a top 4 or 5 receiver in the league. But Corey Davis, I think, like you said, we were pretty close on him. And I think for a wide receiver too, anywhere from, that, like I said, I have him getting 680 yards. Anywhere from there to even 800 yards, I feel like is a good season for a wide receiver too, in an offense that is more focused on the run.
Yeah. Well, they are going to take a little bit off of Derrick Henry this season. They've already said that. But some of that's going to go to Darrington Evans. And
Right.
I'm not going to say that they're going to run as much, but some of that's going to go to Darrington Evans. The rest of it will be spread out more among the receivers in the passing game. But it's not enough to warrant having a 1,500-yard wide receiver, 1,200 yard, just a bunch of receivers that are putting up really, really good numbers. I mean, I think that kind of where we're at right now, A.J. Brown being probably really, really good, 1,300 to 1,500 yards, and
Mm.
then just about cutting that in half with Corey Davis.
Yeah.
I say we move to Adam Humphries next, and I'll go first on him because I'm going to be really quick. Old reliable Adam Humphries, and that's the nickname I'm giving him because he's reliable. You put him in on third and 4, or just yardage, and or it's second, third, whatever down, maybe even fourth down, and you got short to go, slant route, out route, whatever you need to do. He's a good route runner. He always has a good catch percentage. As long as he can keep that catch percentage above 70 or 75%, I'm good with that. I'd like to see him go above 80 for the first time ever in his career this next season. But, I've got him at 85 targets for 67 receptions, almost as much as Corey Davis, 670 yards, 4 touchdowns, and that catch percentage at 78.8%.
All right. Wow. You definitely have me beat on targets for him and everything, which I know last year he was injured for a couple
He was
games, I
hurt
believe.
for a good stint.
For 2020, I have Adam Humphries getting 55 targets, 43 receptions. Kind of like you said with the catch percentage, I want him to keep that high. Last year, he had like 78.7%.
He was 1.3 off from breaking that 80 mark.
So, this next season, I have him staying right at that 78% catch percentage. I do have him increasing in yards. I have him getting 432 yards. Another thing that's real big for him is, he's another one of these guys that averages over 10 yards per reception. And I think he's right there at that again. But I do have him ending up with the same amount of touchdowns as last year and finishing the season with 2. But like you said, very reliable, especially on third down. And just with that catch percentage, I see him continuing to do that for us.
Yeah. I just realized I actually have him right at 10 yards per catch.
Yeah,
I've got him right on that mark.
And that's right where I had him too. Last year he was just over that 10 yards per catch mark. And this year, I think his catch percentage and his yards per catch will be right there where they were last year.
So what are you thinking about for Khalif Raymond?
For Raymond, that's exactly what I think he's going to be, is the burner. I don't think he's going to have just a whole lot of targets because, I do have him increasing from last year. But the thing is, with a burner, you don't want to always run that streak route because teams are going to catch on. You want to call that play at the right time where it's pretty much going to be an automatic touchdown or an automatic big play. I do have him jumping up to 20 targets this year, 14 receptions. I have him finishing with a 70% catch percentage rate, 252 yards, and 1 touchdown. I think he is going to burn defenses this year. I think they will capitalize with him one time like they did last year for a touchdown. But I think more of it is just going to be for a lot of yards on, big plays. I don't think they're all, that several of them are going to go for touchdowns or anything, but just having that big play ability to where you're gaining, maybe 30 yards, 40 yards down the field on one play. That just gives your team energy.
Yeah, yeah. And that's what Raymond is. He's a deep guy. And, he's quick, he's fast, he runs good deep routes. And I want to see him get some more snaps next season so that he can do more of that. But like you said, don't use him too much. Just keep that weapon stashed in your back pocket for when you can really, really use it to your advantage.
If you use him too much, then when he comes in, teams are going to focus on him and know more than likely what you're doing. with him out there. So, like you were just saying, as long as you don't overuse him, you might can sneak him in the game and then burn him for that big play.
Yeah. I've got, and again, we're really similar. I mean, it's almost like we share some kind of DNA or something. I don't know, but we're similar again on this.
Something like that.
But I've got him for 18 targets, 12 receptions, 210 yards, and a touchdown, which brings him out to 17 and a half yards per reception, which is down a little bit from last season. But
last year he was just under 19 yards per reception, but I mean, I had him down too. I have him at 18, but I mean, even then, he's one of the top guys on the team as far as yards per reception.
Yeah. I mean, I can't exactly remember what I had for A.J. Brown, but I would say that he's going to be probably above A.J. Brown, and I mean, they'll probably be up there at the top together. Let's move from wide receivers to tight ends. And when we're talking about tight ends, there's just like the wide receivers, there's a clear-cut guy, in my opinion, there that you talk about first, and that's Jonnu Smith.
I'm going to let you start with Jonnu. I want to see what you have him doing
my
this
biggest
year.
question for Jonnu this season, because there's no doubt that he has the talent, but my biggest question for him is, will he actually break out this season? This is the first full off season that he's actually going to have where he's not nursing some kind of injury, and then bam, coronavirus, COVID, whatever you want to call it, comes in, and he still doesn't get an actual full normal off season without an injury.
Yeah, but I mean, have you seen some of the stuff he's posted on Instagram?
Oh yeah, he looks fine.
He's been working.
I think he's been doing just fine.
I mean, I feel sorry for defenses that have to worry about tackling him, Derrick Henry, and A.J. Brown just from seeing work that they're putting in this offseason.
We talk about Derrick Henry wearing down defenses, but it's going to be a combination of all of these guys. I mean, the Titans are big, and they're just going to wear you down all game long.
Mm-hmm.
But for Jonnu, I'm thinking 70 targets for 55 receptions, 656 yards, 5 touchdowns.
Man, I'm telling you, and obviously we couldn't get together and talk about all this stuff.
This is why we're doing a Zoom call for this YouTube, and we're not together. Tyler is in North Carolina. You can go ahead and talk about that for a minute if you want to, Tyler. I don't know if you do or
not. Out here in North Carolina, come out here with my wife. She's donating eggs, and so like I said, I'm out here in North Carolina. We couldn't get together on this. This video is the first time we decided to do this yesterday, and didn't really talk about what we were expecting from these guys. But for me, with Jonnu, I have him bumping up to getting 80 targets this next year, 62 receptions. His catch percentage rate, I have him at 77.5%, 618 yards, and 5 touchdowns. So, like you said, we are really close on a lot of these guys. And, I think that catch percentage that I said, you were kind of surprised by that maybe a little bit, but it is unfortunately down some from last year if these stats were to come true. Last year he was at 79.5% catch percentage. So, but yeah, I think he's going to break out this year, being, like you said, having this off season. He's another guy that, like we talked about, it looks like he's been putting in a lot of work, and being the number one tight end for us this year, I think he's going to live up to that potential.
I sure hope so, because especially with Delaney Walker leaving, we could use another good tight end. One guy that I like a lot is Anthony Tharixer, and I mean, I don't know why, I just like him. I just really like him. But 21 targets, 14 receptions, 244 yards. Don't have any touchdowns for him, but I'm going to keep his short and sweet. So you can go ahead with him, and then if you have anybody else, I didn't put anyone else down on here, but if you do, you can go ahead with that.
All right. For Tharixer, I have him getting 36 targets, 21 receptions. And like I said, some of these guys, I have pretty much everyone's numbers going up since Walker and Sharp are gone. And, those targets would need to be divided up somewhere. So, like I said, Tharixer, 36 targets, 21 receptions, 253 yards. And I do have him getting 1 touchdown. His catch percentage last year was under 60%. I think he's probably going to stay under that, which is, I think, one of the lower percentages on the team last year. But then I do have one more guy. I have Pruitt. I have his numbers going up just slightly from last year. I think he'll get 12 targets, 9 receptions for 103 yards. He had 90 yards last year, and I think he'll get a touchdown as well. Just because getting down near the goal line, teams will probably be expecting more runs than anything, and I think a couple of these tight ends will get some touchdowns that way.
I would definitely wouldn't disagree with that. I think that Tharixer could grab a couple of touchdowns down towards the goal line. Pruitt could. There's Cole Herdman, who might make the team. Dennis Kelly might grab a touchdown or so.
I was actually going to save that for, when we talk about our expectations for the offensive linemen, because I'm sure we will do that at some point. I was going to save some of those for, those guys sneaking a touchdown or two maybe throughout
I'd like to
the
see a
season.
Lewan touchdown. Put him at like fullback or something and just hand in the ball.
You're going to have to get out of my head here, because I was actually thinking that as well.
Just put him, or even just like put Derrick Henry in front of him or something. Just let him just run right up the middle.
Yeah, I'd like to see him get a touchdown.
But I don't think that we should put it past the Titans that they're done at wide receiver. I think they could add a guy, because they could definitely use the depth.
Well,
I'd be big on Josh Gordon. Just going to put that one out there.
Yeah, I know you would. But even looking at their roster right now, there are several other receivers who, undrafted free agents and just pickups that they've had, that these guys might come in and make an impact. We don't know. We're going to have to wait and see, if training camp actually goes on and even preseason. But some of these guys can, make the team and have some big plays for us, even if it's on special teams, like maybe returning kicks or punts. But, what we mainly did was, like we've been doing with our other expectations, we hit on the top guys and what we are expecting from them this next season, because these are guys that we, barring any injuries, anything like that, we know these guys are going to be on the field. We didn't want to dive in just too far down the depth chart and give expectations for some of these other guys, because, like I was saying, not knowing what's going to go on with training camp in the preseason, we don't know if those guys will end up being there or not. So just wanted to throw that in for everyone right quick.
There's really no telling until the team can actually get together. I don't know the exact date on when the training camp, when everyone can actually start getting together, but we'll have no idea who's looking good and who's not until we get to that point.
Right.
But that's all that we've got for this video. I want to let you know to go check us out on Twitter, Titans_time. Check us out on Instagram, Titans Time Podcast, and check out our podcast just in general on any podcast app that you want to look at it on. Check out our website, titanstimepodcast.com. Always posting articles and stuff on there and put a lot of work into that. So go check all those things out.
And guys, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. turn on the post notifications, drop a like for the video, leave us a comment, let us know how we're doing, anything else you would like to hear, anything we can improve on. And guys, same thing for the podcast. Go check us out on those podcast apps, subscribe to the podcast, leave us that 5-star rating, and leave some comments. Let us know how we're doing on it.
This has been Titans Time, and as always, tighten up.